Hey folks, this is Russell Longcore from www.dumpdc. DumpDC is the premier site for secession news in the United States and around the globe. We teach people that secession is the only logical solution for individual liberty and property rights here in the United States, and probably around the world, and certainly on the North American continent. Now, I wrote an article, and it's gotten a lot of play. Uh, the article is entitled "Nullification is for Sissies," and I posted it at DumpDC. This is an article that I actually first wrote in July of 2010. But I find that when I go on to Google and go into their search boxes, that 10,000 people a month at least are going to Google and punching in the word secession. So why is secession such a topic that gains such interest out there? Well, I can give you a lot of reasons, and actually I have given you a lot of reasons here in this article. My article will be seen by an awful lot of people on that are looking for secession from blogs and that come to DumpDC. I have thousands of people that come to DumpDC on a pretty regular basis. But if I don't post this as a video, there's going to be a segment of the population, a segment of the people that are on the internet that won't see this. And so I'm going to go ahead today and just read this for you so that you folks that have not seen DumpDC and have not seen this article will have me reading the article that I wrote. So once again, the title is Nullification is for Sissies. This title is kind of a throwdown challenge, isn't it? That is exactly what I meant for it to be, a challenge to the present-day promoters of nullification to entirely rethink and reevaluate their foundational principle. Nullification sounds so reasonable, so diplomatic, so sophisticated, so strategic, so statesmanlike. Who could assail such a measured response? Well, you know, I'm putting my hand up. Russell Longcore reporting for duty. If you're not familiar with the concept of nullification, let me give you the shortest overview. The English colonies in America seceded from the British Empire with their publication of the Declaration of Independence and their victory over the British military in 1781. The colonies became independent nations upon secession. Even King George recognized the nationhood in the 1783 Treaty of Paris. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was written to create a kind of a management company for those independent nations. The states, through the Constitution, gave the United States strictly enumerated powers to manage certain affairs of the states, and all the powers not given to the United States were reserved to the states and to the people, which is the 10th Amendment. So nullification, though not specifically mentioned in the Constitution, is the process whereby a state refuses to enact or enforce a law. They refuse to enforce a law that's been enacted by Congress because the law is outside the strictures of the Constitution. Nullification has its foundation in the 10th Amendment. Pardon me. In the late 18th century, there were less than 2.5 million people in the 13 new nations, and all of those nations were on the eastern seaboard. At that time, in which a small number of people were governed and resided close by, nullification may have had its usefulness. But today there are 50 states with over 300 million people scattered from sea to shining sea and beyond to places like Hawaii and Alaska, and now places like Puerto Rico, which is a commonwealth. Much of the USA is thousands of miles away from Washington. Then why nullification now, friends? I challenge your very premise here. Nullification is based upon the premise that staying in the Union has some value, and that the federal government should continue to rule over the states in all the areas of governance except the ones the states nullify. But if you'll remember, the states created the United States as an errand boy for the states. Well, the errand boy has now grown up, and he is now the uncontrollable bully boy of the states and of the planet. The states have been subsumed by the DC crowd. They have abrogated their responsibility and their sovereignty, and they have no real authority or power to control Washington, since no states control the power of the sword or the power of the purse. What benefits do the states presently receive from being in the Union? Well, I contend that they receive none. Washington only breathes out tyranny, regulation, and oppression, both on American soil and around the world. It is so cumbersome, so corrupt, and so bloated that it destroys everything it touches. In my seldom humble opinion, nullification is a tentative, halting, almost cowering gesture towards Washington. It almost begs permission. Nullification tacitly acknowledges that Washington is the boss. It fairly begs Washington to accept the state's wishes, even though the state has no power to thwart Washington's refusal to honor the nullification. This is akin to sending the neighborhood bully a letter, telling him that he may not have your lunch money anymore. Now, the letter is fine, but what are you going to do when you see the bully in the playground tomorrow? Specifically, what force will you enlist to fight back and defeat the bully when he grabs your shirt in his fists? Your nullification will likely get your nose bloodied. Unless you can blacken both his eyes and send him crying to his mommy, you'll likely keep losing your lunch money. The United States of America, the DC crowd, not the people who comprise the 50 states, should, by our Declaration of Independence, be thrown off by the people, we the people. I do not promote that the USA should be dissolved. They should do whatever they want to do. My position is that the states should forsake this theater of nullification and move right ahead to secession, leaving the Union altogether. Let the U.S. government continue its treachery and perfidy over the states that wish to remain together and wish to remain allied with D.C. Nullification is for sissies. Sissies who are not strong enough to advance the secession of their states, converting their state from a slave state to a serfdom to a sovereign nation. One act of secession. In one act of secession, any state instantly drops the shackles of federalism and statism. All federal debt is repudiated, all federal regulation melts away, and federal taxation ceases in an instant. My challenge goes out to my friends still embracing the concept of nullification. Wrestle your sovereignty away from D.C. by seceding from the Union. Stop trying to maintain a relationship with a criminal enterprise. Don't just go to counseling with your obdurate political spouse. Get a restraining order, get a divorce, and get a gun. Then commit all your efforts to recreating a new nation where individual liberty and property rights are respected and promoted and protected. Secession is the only hope for liberty on the North American continent. Who will be first? And that brings us to the end of this article. This article is brought to you by DumpDC, 6 letters that will change history. Permission to print in whole or reprint in whole or in part, or repost this video in whole or in part are gladly granted by me, providing full credit is given. Thank you, folks. Come visit us at www.dumpdc.com. Thanks. Bye-bye.